The conflict in West Asia has triggered the most severe crisis the global economy has faced in recent years. Oil prices are constantly rising and countries are scrambling to roll out measures to combat fuel shortages amid a supply disruption.
The International Energy Agency has recommended the release of 400 million barrels of oil, the largest such move in its history, to try to restrain soaring crude prices.
Global energy supply has been reduced by around 20%, and underlying market balances coming into this conflict were even tighter than in the case of oil. Asia is the most severely affected region for gas. Higher income countries in Asia are competing hard with Europe and other importers for available LNG cargoes.
Iran is a major oil producer along with West Asian nations Saudi Arabia, UAE, Iraq, Oman and Kuwait. At the center of the energy crisis is the Strait of Hormuz, which is located between Iran to the north and Oman and the UAE to the south. Nearly 35% of the world's seaborne oil and 20% of its LNG transit through this narrow waterway. The ongoing fighting has affected the shipping traffic, sparking fears of prolonged scarcity in supply. The airspace closure in parts of the Gulf has forced airlines to reroute flights, resulting in higher airfares and flight cancellations. Tourism in West Asia has also taken a hit over security concerns. There's also an intense selling pressure in the market as investors dump stocks to cut losses. Then there are concerns over inflation along with hoarding and panic buying of fuel if the conflict persists.
The world just can't live without, we consume more than 100 million barrels per day. So to be missing 15 million barrels a day of crude, 5 or 6 of refined products like gas oil, jet fuel, gasoline, can't have it. The economies just won't work. We would go into a recession.
The energy crisis has led governments to rethink their policies. At a nuclear energy summit in France, European Union chief Ursula von der Leyen called Europe's turn away from civilian nuclear power a strategic mistake.
While in 1990, 1/3 of Europe's electricity came from nuclear, today it's only close to 15%. This reduction in the share of nuclear was a choice. And in hindsight, it was a strategic mistake for Europe to turn its back on a reliable, affordable source of low-emission power.
Notably, European nations have already been facing energy crisis after they cut down on Russian gas imports due to the Ukraine war. The ongoing fuel deficit will provide a boost to green energy like wind and solar power. But these are long-term solutions. A continued disruption in passage through Hormuz will force ships to take longer routes, thereby increasing freight charges, which would in turn raise the cost of imported goods.
If you cannot access that strait and move your product out, your first port of call is to try and exhaust any sort of what we call floating storage. So any vessels, ships that are in the region, try and load oil onto that first. And once that's exhausted, you try and fill in your on-land inventories and pass as much as you can to your domestic refinery system to run. Once that's exhausted, which we've seen is the case, in Iraq and Kuwait, notably right now, you then have a situation where you need to shut down your production.
The alternatives, like pipelines, lack the capacity to handle the volume of crude normally shipped through the strait.
The immediate solution to the ongoing energy crisis will be to secure transit through the Strait of Hormuz, but that's going to be difficult as the waterway is a major strategic leverage for Iran. Meanwhile, countries, especially those heavily dependent on imports, have started diversifying oil supply routes away from Hormuz. With camera person Manmohan Singh, this is Annu Kaushik reporting for the Economic Brief, DD India.